All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the EOS Fireside Chat. Realized that my volume was actually pretty low on my music for last week. Get better with the sound effects this week. All right, thanks for joining, everyone. We've had some... Hey, Veronica. We're gonna mute EOS Market. If you fix your mic, let me know. Yeah, we had some. I'm gonna mute you, Denis, as well. We had some jam-packed Fireside episodes last few weeks. This week the agenda is a bit lighter. Obviously, Pomelo is over. Well, Pomelo season 2, the donation period closed last week on Saturday. So we'll be talking a bit about the next steps for Pomelo season 2, and then also talking a bit about Pomelo season 3, which is going to be coming around just the corner as well. We'll talk a bit about Yield Plus, maybe hash over some elements of TrustEVM as well. We had the EOS EPT that was listed this week, Vigor 2.0. Vigor got a new team that is now taking care of it, and do some little housekeeping, such as the end of month raffle tickets for those of you who have pop tokens. So the blend is up at our usual blend page, which is blend.gems.io. And you can go there and then blend 5 pop tokens into your raffle ticket. We've got 23 prizes this week. The prizes will be given out at the end of next week's show. So you can use your pop token from today to get your ticket minted in time. Yeah, we got 20 people in the chat. Thanks for joining us, everyone. If you want to say hi real quick, welcome you to do that. And if not, we're just going to wait another minute or two before we get into it. All right. So let's start off with some Pomelo season 2 statistics, actually. So gonna share a few numbers with you guys. We're very happy. The Pomelo team's very happy with the result of season 2. Thank you to everyone who was a grant creator. Of course, thank you to everyone who donated. We had actually a lot more unique contributors this season than last season. So right now we're at 1,790 unique contributors compared to 1,022 for season 1. So that's like 750 more people or so. However, We are currently doing some analysis on the donations. There were some Sybil attacks that were attempted this season, that's for sure. We've identified some pretty conclusively. We don't have a report to share just yet. The team is still working on that. But I just want to highlight that this 1,790 unique contributors is going to go down a bit. What happens when people try to Sybil attack Pomelo is that the Pomelo team uses a variety of analytics tools to determine patterns and to look into the donations and the account links and all sorts of things. And then what we'll do is, if we strongly suspect that someone was Sybil attacking one of the grants by creating multiple accounts and trying to donate from those multiple accounts, we're going to collapse all of those donations and count them as a single account that donated the total amount of money that they donated. So it still counts as a donation. It's just not being, counted from multiple accounts. It counts from one account. So we're still working, or the Pomelo team is still working on doing that analysis. We'll be publishing a report once that's done, same as we did last season. So for season 1, we also published such a report. Maybe someone could find the link and share it for us in the stream chat. But you can expect a similar type of report for season 2. In terms of approved grant proposals, we nearly doubled from season 1 to season 2. So that's great. And that's not Sybil attack. Those are real numbers. So season 1, we had 74 grants approved. Season 2, we had 139 in the end grants approved. So that's really great. We love to see that kind of growth on Pomelo. For season 1 user contributions, we had a total of $130,000 worth of EOS donated during season 1. We surpassed that number for season 2 with $146,000 donation. So it's great to see that we surpassed that number, especially since the price of EOS is actually lower now than it was before. So in terms of EOS, it was about 30,000 EOS season 1, and this season 2 we got 58,000 EOS. So that's definitely clear growth in those donations. And even if some of these donations may be Sybil attacks and will be collapsed into a single donation, the total amount of EOS donated still counts, and that donation is still going to those grants. 10% of all donations is actually reserved for future matching pools. So if you donated during season 2, 10% of your donation is actually given to the matching pool for season 3. And this is another way to kind of increase our Sybil defenses, so that if you do try to Sybil attack and you donate large amounts, well, you've got the risk of either having the grant disqualified if there's enough proof that shows that the grant owners were behind the Sybil attack, or having your donations collapsed and then having 10% of those donations, carried over for the next season. So those are, some of the defense mechanisms that the Pomelo team employs against Sybil. Final stats here that I want to share. Season 1 matching pool and user contribution, 630,000. Season 2 matching pool and user contributions, $1,059,000. So almost a double there as well. Almost a double in the amount of EOS donated. So it's really great. We're Pomelo team's happy. I know the ENF team is also happy with the results of the season. And so, yeah, thanks to everyone who participated. And, we hope that you guys built some awesome stuff with the that you'll receive. Speaking of, so a lot of people have been reaching out wondering when they can claim their matching amount. Well, in order for us to unlock that, we do need to finish our analysis of the donations. So as soon as that's done, and once the grant owners have gone through the KYC process, because in order to claim matching funds, you do need to be KYC'd. If you're a returning grant owner from season 1, then you don't need to KYC again. We've already got that on file. But if you're a new grant owner, then you'll need to KYC, so you can get that done as soon as possible, and then be ready for those matching funds once they're unlocked after the report, the Sybil report, is published. All right, that was a lot of information, a lot of Pomelo information. Anyone have any thoughts to share on Pomelo season 2? Maybe what they liked, some surprises, maybe something they didn't like, something they'd like to see improved for season 3. So the Pomelo team is, already working towards season 3. We've got they're working on specific things, but of course, we always want as much feedback as possible from the community. So let's hear some feedback from the community.
We got one.
Yes, who was that?
It was me, Anas.
Hey,
Hey.
how's it going?
All good, all good.
Good, good.
So it is just general, and if it is kind of life stat, like the contribution and the stuff like this, I think it will be great. And I noticed some of the grants, they did not have the social links. So like for some grants, I really like their idea, but I have no reference rather than their proposal. So if it will be kind of mandatory, so for us as a community to follow up with their progress after they got the grant, I think it is will be plus.
Yeah, that's a good feedback. Actually, I had the same impression going through some of the grants. I was like, okay, who is behind this grant? And there was no indication of who was behind the grant. There was just the Pomelo account, which links to an EOS account, but doesn't necessarily link to socials or a way of contacting grant owners. So I definitely agree with that with that aspect, and that's good feedback. Thanks for sharing. I'll definitely make sure that the Pomelo team knows maybe some sort of contact method could be added as a required field for these Pomelo grants in the future. Yeah, right on. We're up to 30 people in the chat. We've got a lot of people signing up for the POP tokens. It's great to see that's going on in the stream chat channel for those of you who may not be familiar with that. Yeah, any other thoughts from people on Pomelo season 2? I see Zack and Yves are in here as well. I know the ENF is also going to be doing some extra contributions. I don't know if Zack and Yves want to talk a bit about that, or if anyone else wants to share some of their thoughts. Love to hear it.
Sure. So we've gone through as a team and selected the likely recipients of the direct contributions. We will make those public after Pomelo actually delivers its governance report. So what we want to ensure, for obvious reasons, is that we didn't select a project that turns out they tried to Sybil attack the network or something like that. So Daniel and I have been in communication. There are a few teams that I guess will be rejected or will be disqualified for the season. Those weren't teams that we were going to donate to anyways, but prior to making the final list known and the amounts known, we want to ensure that all is kosher in that regard. I know that Pomelo is going to be delivering its report and then having an appeal process as well. So it is possible that some of the teams that were disqualified will be able to appeal, and you never know, perhaps they are in the right. And so we'll make those announcements later. But just in terms of general sense, so as we had mentioned, we are doing $125,000 worth of extra contributions, and those are contributions that will be applied after. So the matching pool is already, or the season's already done, and so the matching is already kind of locked in a way, pending, like you said, Stephane, the collapsing of perhaps multiple donations into one when it's evident that it was actually one person or something like that. I'd also say that it was brought up to my attention that there was one where it's an obvious civil attack. And what I recommended is that those not be counted at all. So not just collapsing them as into one, they should be removed from the algorithm in terms of matching. Because even if you collapse them into one, it is still somebody that tried to attack the network. They should not be rewarded for that. And so that is my position. But all that said, we've got, and I'm just looking over the list here in the background, we've got likely 39 extra recipients of direct grants. From all the way down of a $500 match, or not $500 match, $500 extra contribution on top of what essentially they're already receiving through Pomelo regular means, all the way up to, I believe the largest direct contribution is $12,500. So you've got a bunch of 1,000, 2,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 8,000, 9,000, and like I said, one of them is likely going to be recipient of $12,500. So we will be making those public in the next 2 weeks, give or take. Again, it'll depend on when that governance report from Pomelo comes out, and we'll try to align it so that the intent is for those teams, when they go to claim their Pomelo matching, that essentially the extra amount add-on from the ENF is part of that claim. And so we're still seeing whether or not that's possible, but the idea is that then they would only claim once, they would get the full amount, which is the match, as well as then the extra contribution for those who that applies to.
Excellent. Looking forward to seeing that list. That's a nice extensive list that you guys built.
So actually, one thing that is useful for those on the call. So we've got 32 people on the call. Over the last couple of weeks, the .gems team has been hosting Pomelo Pitch Sessions. Last week it was the rapid fire Pomelo's pitch session and such. Zack and I have been present, and I believe Brandon has also been present on all of these, and it definitely informed my decisions. It definitely added projects that I had not known of, and it got me to go look into them and to essentially donate some of my donations to them. And so I would highly recommend, and I've been saying this so many times, the bar to entry right now is so low. The community is quite small. We're still very, very nascent. The bar to entry right now to get known in the community is so low. There are people that have reached out over the last couple of months and that wanted to participate in Pomelo, and they did no extra marketing. And all the tools were there available to them, and they really did very little, and then it reflects in the contributions received. At some point, EOS will become too big, the communities will be too large, time will be limited, and you will have a higher barrier to entry to be able to pitch your Pomelo pitches, for example, in the sessions like we do on the Fireside chat, because there's going to be a long list of 100 people who also want to get in line to do the same. The barrier to entry right now is so low, the potential ROI is so high. Pomelo Season 3 is around the corner again. I would highly advise those that have Pomelo pitches to take the time, go on the shows. GeneraEOS has a show, Jimmy D does a show, Fireside here, there's a show. There's others as well that offer their services to put you out there and help you market. It makes a big difference. We can definitely see that those that were out there that are known receive a higher proportion of the contribution fees, not just from the ENF and such. I mean, actual individual contributors. We can see that it makes a difference. Go out there, make yourself known. If we compare it to Gitcoin, where there are thousands of applicants, there's the same amount of funds available, but now you're competing for the same pie, but it gets way more competition. The barrier to entry is higher. Take advantage of it while you can, and think as well that it's not, what you're receiving is not just financial support. You're building trust within the system. You're also building a track record on Pomelo and in EOS of being able to deliver on what you say that you're going to do. It gives you the opportunity to really stand out and make yourself known. Same thing with Eden as well. The barrier to entry is so low. The election occurred earlier this month. The amount of people that show up is so few. The barrier to entry is so low. It gives you the opportunity to make yourself known. And in a year, that barrier to entry ideally will be much, much, much higher, and you will be benefiting from the early time commitment that you've put towards this, in my opinion, it's a no-brainer. The ROI, potential ROI is so high. Take the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Come to the Fireside chats. It's a no-brainer.
It's kind of like you're an early adopter of this new network, right? And early adopters of crypto networks, they get to buy the tokens, cheap, and then they get upside. But in Pomelo, what you're getting is the ability to build that reputation when, like Yves says, there's not too much competition yet, which will definitely increase. As we saw, we pretty much doubled the amount of grants that were applied from season 1 to season 2. I definitely expect season 3 to see even more grants.
And we will not be doubling the matching funds, right? So there is also a limit to how much money we're going to put in the pot. So don't expect that. Yes, there is a limit, because at some point it just makes no more sense either. And so the pie is not going to grow indefinitely, but the amount of applicants will grow indefinitely. Ooh.
Yeah, and exactly. And so just to throw it back to the marketing initiatives that we had, obviously I'm hosting these Fireside chats. I organized the pitch sessions for the Fireside chat. There was also, in that same form, you could apply, like you mentioned, to the Genereos YouTube pitch sessions, and our EOS Nation Asia team was also hosting 10-cent meeting pitch sessions on there for the Asian community. So we did see some, English-speaking grants, such as Jesse from the Bees, go on to this 10-cent meeting pitch session, and our EOS Nation Asia team helps translate for these sessions. So if you only speak English, that doesn't mean you can't go out there and talk to the Asian community. We have translators on the call that help facilitate that. So that's definitely coming back for season 3. Definitely going to be doing the pitch sessions again. Personally, when I'm going through a list of grants, checking out what I want to donate to, I know that when I see a grant that took the time to apply to the pitch session, that makes me much, much likelier to donate to them. Probably a bit because I'm organizing the pitch sessions, but I think, like you said, that also applies to a lot of other people. You get exposed to the EOS community in a wider sense, and more people are going to donate. So yeah, definitely be on the lookout for the pitch sessions for next season. We're going to be starting them a bit earlier, because I couldn't fit everyone in the pitch session. There was more applications than spots when we were doing 2 per show. I tried to kind of select the most well-known grants by the people who attend the Fireside chats every week, who have been known in the community for a long time, and that I'm very, very confident that it's not a scam grant or whatever, and that these people can deliver on what they say. And then we're going to do the rapid fire as well. I think that was a really nice success. Everyone came ready with their 2-minute pitch. That was sharp. It was, I think people enjoyed that. So we'll definitely be doing that again next season. We also did a retweet campaign where we encourage people to tweet, to tag Pomelo Grants, hashtag Pomelo Grants as well, and do a small explanation of what the grant was with a link. And then so we'll be doing that again next year. Maybe I asked the Pomelo team if it'd be possible to kind of send those instructions as an automated email whenever their grants get approved. So I'm hoping to see that feature available for season 3. And in terms of timing, the Pomelo team is aiming to get these 4 seasons per year, right? So that means that there's a new season that has to start every 3 months. Season 2 started about a month ago. So if we're trying to hit that target, that means season 3 would start in about 2 months. So the date is not yet fixed, but that's what we're aiming for. So it's definitely not too early to start thinking about your season 3 pitch. One thing that I really enjoyed when I read a grant is that the grant applicants actually show a sample of the work they're going to do, and they show me that they've already started doing it even before they receive their matching funds. Now that's not possible for all grants, but if it is possible, I personally think that's very important, and that incentivizes me or encourages me to donate to those grants. So it's not too early to start thinking about your season 3 pitch. We will be opening the pitch sessions on Fireside before the grants, potentially even before you can submit grants to the official Pomelo platform. So if you're really organized, you're on the ball with your grant, you want to get some exposure, You know, get your grant ready. Stay on the lookout for the pitch session form, which will be out, you know, leading up to season 3. Okay, we've got Doug here sharing some links about various pitches sorted by highest amount raised, lowest amount raised. You know, it is important to note that this is before we've adjusted for the cyber attacks, so these amounts will be changing, but it is interesting to take a look. Also, I noticed Doug said, you know, asked a good question, saying here, are there any repercussions for bad actors in Pomelo, and will any information of their identities be publicly disclosed? So, you know, that's not necessarily my department here in Pomelo, on the Pomelo team, but I will...
I can answer.
Go for it.
The answer is yes and yes. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. There are repercussions. We are following. The ENF is definitely following. As the main matching partner, I'm constantly in communication with Daniel about it and the Pomelo team, because there are certain things that are, you know, not black and white, gray, or how to deal with them. But I've made it known publicly in the Pomelo channel as well that those that abuse of the system, and that it is obvious that they are attempting to abuse of the system, will have repercussions. In terms of the governance framework, sorry, not the governance framework, but the governance report afterwards that is output, you can see in season 1 that the identities of those that either intentionally or non-intentionally were removed or were disqualified is made known. So it is not a secret, it is not private. Having said that, though, in my opinion, it is obvious that there's still work to do from the Pomelo team in order to ensure that people know what the rules are. And the most obvious one is the quid pro quo. It is, to me, it is obvious that it's still an issue that people don't know because they can't be that stupid. Pardon my language, but there's some people that are clearly very, they're known members of the community, very publicly went out this season and said, hey, if for every $1 that you contribute, I'll make direct reciprocation. Like, so either they're really stupid, and so they're going to get a slap on the wrist because they should know better. And so I doubt that they're malicious. I think more so it is that people really don't know and they don't read, and that is a responsibility that they need to take. So yes, there are repercussions on that. You do, for some of them, get a warning, and at some point there will be no more warnings, and I will advise that we will disqualify them or that we will not want to match to them. There's no excuse. So the Pomelo team needs to get better to explain the rules, but the community also needs to get better at, the community also needs to enforce itself, and this is where Pomelo season 1 was really, really good. A lot of the reports came from other members, and people are helping make the system better. But the community itself also needs to be better at understanding why those rules are in place, and why they are better for everybody. This is a centralized service. It is Pomelo. It's very centralized. There's a top-down approach of who gets disqualified or not. However, that does become published. There's an appeal process. So it's not to say that if you screwed up, it's done, but you will need to be responsible for your screw up, for sure.
And in terms of the Pomelo team getting better at explaining these things, I definitely agree. There's probably room for improvement there. And I know the Pomelo team did hire recently additional people on the team, and so they're hoping to produce more content and communication throughout the next season. So hopefully, that'll be part of it as well, which I'm sure it will be. And if you haven't noticed yet, if you try to attack Pomelo, Yves is personally insulted. And so I really do not recommend this strategy if you want to be a long-time contributor in the EOS network. And like Yves said, the whole community really rallies behind Pomelo. It's been great to see the reception from the community and a lot of reports of the community members, saying, hey, here's a screenshot of this message. is this against the rules, or hey, take a look
Yeah,
at this
I would really
grant.
advise. Yeah, that's one thing. Like when you're bragging about gaming the system to another user, just heads up, those users are then sending those screenshots to us. Like, just don't do it. It's not worthwhile. This system is a trust system that we're building. It's not worthwhile trying to game it in season 2 when there's going to be multiple seasons and you're going to be shooting yourself in the foot. Especially in this community at this stage where it's so small, everybody knows each other, and the pie is only a certain size. Like, you think you're maybe telling this in confidence to somebody, they're turning around and ratting on you. So I don't advise it. It's just not worth the time. Build your reputation. Think of this as a long-term portal that you're able to build a name for yourself in. And eventually, in the long term, there's going to be more matchers. There's going to be more money in the pot, not necessarily from the ENF, but from others. Just look at Gitcoin. Go look at Gitcoin and the community that's been built there, and the community that's formed, and kind of what that means to the ecosystem. That's what we're aiming for. That's what we're trying to build.
Yeah, and hi everyone. So just to bang on that point of how small the community is, it expands also beneath, outside of Pomelo, right? So there are, for example, some projects that are being analyzed for potentially trying to game the system or a cyber attack, that participated in the Helios incubator, right? So then that might definitely hinder their possibilities of getting a private investment, because it affects your credibility, right? Your it's a very, very, very how well you can deliver in the tech. It's sometimes it's depending on a lot of variables, but if you're trustworthy or not, that's a very kind of a 1 and 0, very, very no brainer situation for any investor that wants to support your project. So yeah, that's something that needs to be taken into account, being the community being so small. So what I mean is, if you got disqualified in Pomelo, getting support from within the community is going to be tough.
And I see that Douglas is saying, I think we should map out potential collusion relationships between bad actors. EOS Detective has been out for 3 years. Just go look at EOS Detective. Like, you're not hiding. All the data's on the blockchain. That's kind of the point of the blockchain. And there are now visualization tools that have been out for quite some time that can make this process very easy to track. Just don't do it. You're going to get caught, buddy. I know that's a challenge for some. Great. Go for it. You're also giving us data to improve.
Is there is any number on the people who verified their account for the social factors as a percentage of the total people being contributing to Pomelo?
I don't have that number offhand, but
Roughly.
yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not even going to attempt to guess on that. But maybe that's something that we could extract when the final numbers are in. So you'd like to see like how many people had their trust bonus, increase their trust bonus, stuff like that, I imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm also interested in how many people are holding Pomelo NFTs as well, stuff like that. So there's definitely a lot of numbers that we can go grab. I'll mention this to the team for the final report to see if maybe that's something that can be added. So I'm going to share here the link to the Medium article from season 1 for the analysis of season 1. And, you'll see in there one of the screenshots from EOS Detective that is used to kind of visualize the cyber attacks. And they're very, very obvious when visualized in this way through EOS Detective. So I'm sure we'll see more of these types of graphs, for season 2. If you want to go out there on EOS Detective, look up the donation accounts of various grants, you can certainly do that. If we've got some blockchain detectives that want to send us some screenshots to stuff that they think seems suspicious, obviously we're very happy for people who want to do that. We know a lot of people submitted reports through the platform, highlighting various grants that they thought were suspicious. So definitely, feel very free to send over any information you can. Pomelo is a really crowdsourced platform in many ways. And so, the more active we have our community in Pomelo, that means the stronger we are at resisting against cyber attacks, which really, attacks all of the donators, all of the grants, and the entire EOS network, really. So far I've really liked how the communities come together, how people are watching out for each other, and like you've said, the ratting on various grants. So definitely, and I think the grants will improve over time. Maybe some people, like you've said, weren't aware of the quid pro quo rules or the reciprocation rules and stuff like that, and we'll be much clearer about that in the future. And obviously the community is going to keep being on the lookout. So overall, really happy with how it went, and looking forward to season 3. Anyone else want to jump in with some final Pomelo comments before we move on to another topic?
Hey, TrimBot here real quick. Just on the topic of the quid pro quo in violation of Pomelo rules, one thought that I had that could be pretty helpful is when you're onboarding people onto the platform, like when they're trying to create the first grant, for example, there could be like a little quiz at the end, just be like, hey, like, can you do this? Just like a really short, succinct quiz, like a multiple choice question, just to really hammer those points home. I think quid pro quo is probably the main source of violation that people make without realizing that they broke a rule. So I think that one's really important to communicate.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. I know it's something the Pomelo team has already been thinking of how to implement in the future. I like the idea of a quiz, kind of like Binance did to me when I wanted to trade the futures. They're like, are you sure you know what you're doing, son? So yeah, I like that idea for sure.
Chuck here. I just have a question from Pomelo. Is it okay for a project to send out like an unsolicited or unpromised thank you card, like in the form of an NFT, like a worthless NFT that's just a thank you for supporting us after the fact?
Yeah. So that's it's a gray line. I can't give a definitive answer, but I think what's very important is that it's not promised ahead of time, right? So that's definitely part of it. So that people shouldn't be expecting it. Now, if your grant, you don't promise it, but then you send out a thank you NFT, and then you do that every season, then does it become expected? Is that a quid pro quo, etc.? About these NFT gifts specifically, one thing you can do to make sure your NFT is not considered an exchange of value is make it non-transferable. If an NFT is just kind of a badge that you can't transfer, then there's no way to sell it. There's no way to make that thing valuable. So, if you want to send an NFT to all your donators, make it non-transferable. Don't promise it ahead of time. I think that would probably be okay. You can also always reach out to the Pomelo team, at any time. I know Daniel has been kind of in charge of a lot of these types of questions. I'm not sure if he will still be the point man on that for season 3, but you can definitely still reach out to him, and he'll communicate that to the team. So if you guys have ideas of stuff like that, and you're not sure, hey, is this quid pro quo or reciprocation? Send a message, or share in the public chat in Discord here or on Telegram. Share in the public chat so that the whole community can kind of have the discussion together and kind of establish some clear rules about what is allowed and what is not. In the end, you don't want to be straddling the line. If you know there's a line somewhere, make sure you're staying well behind the line. We don't want to see people pushing the line and trying to justify themselves, by a small margin to think it wasn't a quid pro quo. That's not, it's not a good strategy to build your reputation in the long run within the Pomelo community. So I don't know if that answers fully your question.
It's good enough. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
Maybe if we stopped speaking in Latin, it would be a good start for people to understand, since no one here is a native Latin speaker. I'm just kidding.
Nice one, Brandon. Quid pro quo, too fancy for you. All right, so yeah.
Is the English word for quid pro quo is it tit for tat or
this for that?
Tit for tat feels like it has an aggressive connotation to me. Like if you do
that's like when you're getting somebody back for something.
Yeah.
That they did against you.
Yeah. Well, ever since Trump came into power, we now have the. But I need you to do me a favor though.
Yeah, you can't say that in Pomelo. You can't say that alone. Maybe the president of the United States can get away with this on a national stage, but here in Pomelo, we're serious about these things, and you're not going to get away with that in the Pomelo community. So Trump better not try those things in here.
Do you guys want to talk a bit about the grant framework and the GitHub there?
Do you want to talk about it, Hernan?
I do.
Okay, let's do it.
And Zack are up for it in the community.
Yeah, for sure. That's always a relevant topic. So go ahead, ask your questions if you got one, Hernan.
Well, I guess I went through all the GitHub and submitted a proposal, or I submitted a pull request. So I guess even though I went through what the process is, I guess I would love to hear from Yves or Zack. How do you guys are you guys like already actively taking a look at it, or are you waiting to get more requests, or to get the people looking at it, or just a general? First of all, I think I want to commend you guys for the it's super it really it's not only a great grant framework, but it's also it maybe put a lot of work into okay, wait, what exactly is my budget, right? Sometimes it's because it's going to be milestone based, I really had to crunch some numbers and getting to okay, so this is actually what the budget I'll be needing to get the project done. So that's already a win. So thank you for that.
Shout out to Ted. I think Ted has been working on the grant framework. I don't know if you want to.
Ted is the lead for this.
Hi, Ted.
And I'm sorry, what was the question about the grant framework? Sorry.
So
I can answer because I'll answer because it's going to be a tricky one. So thank you, Hernan, for saying thank you, because you won't like what I'm about to say. In the grant project, and I'll answer, I guess, a few things. In the grant project, there are rules, same thing as Pomelo. And one of the grant project minimum requirements is we do not award grants for projects that have been the object of a token sale. So I'm sorry to say, but your grant application doesn't apply or doesn't qualify as it currently stands, Hernan. Having said that, to answer,
we haven't yet sold a single token.
So, okay, NFT sales are token sales. Yes, it is a way to escape ICO laws, but it is the same. So I don't particularly want to get into that right now. NFT sales are token sales. I'm sorry to say that. The first part of your question, because I think that applies more broadly to the rest of the applicants, is the process and the timeline for reviewing. So we have received a few applications and we are already reviewing them. Keep in mind that this is the beginning of this, right? So we're still developing the actual process. So far, the grants that the applications that we've received vary in length between 5 to 7 pages worth of text when you summarize them or when you compile them into a document. And what we are doing, or I guess we're building the process to take those, translate them. First of all, correct them as well, because some people that are submitting these, the English is perhaps not their first language. And so prior to translating them, we need to proofread them, make some changes so that they can be understood. We then send them to translation. After that's done, then we bundle them up. And the idea is over a period of time, we'll bundle these up every 2 weeks to be able to send them to the committee. The committee reviews. They've got a few days to do that. And then once the committee says yay or nay, they get sent to the evaluators. The evaluators then take the much deeper analysis of looking through the actual team that is applying and seeing whether or not the team is capable from a technical point of view of actually delivering on what they say they'll deliver, and then doing it just a generally more thorough review. And I invite you to go read in the grant framework kind of really what that process is. It's quite well laid out. Once that's done, then the teams will be contacted, and that's when the administrative process begins with the teams themselves. So this would be assuming that the committee has said yes, the evaluators have said yes, and that threshold has been passed. Now the ENF just goes back in operations mode to deal with the team to collect some of the information, for example, KYC and such, to actually write a grant agreement, and then proceed through the milestone component of things, making any adjustments that were perhaps recommended by the evaluators, and then delivering through the process. The first batch of people that have applied will likely not be receiving any funding for, I would say, to be very upfront, maybe a month and a half to 2 months as we work through this process with them. After that, however, seeing as we'll be doing this on a bi-weekly to monthly basis, depending on the number of applications, then the flow will begin. So the first batch or the first applicants are the longest ones to receive an answer, but then afterwards, then the flow will have been created, and then it'll just be obviously improving on the process, which is still under development in the sense that we have no data to base this off of. So we'll be improving as we go along, improving how we package that for the committee, how we package that for the evaluators, what we're requesting from the applicants, how we go through this whole process. That will improve over time. And ideally, then the idea will be that it will be roughly on a bi-weekly to monthly basis is when people will expect or should expect to have an answer and then the process to begin. But yes, we have been reviewing those that have been submitted. We've had only a few so far of formal ones. I hope that answers that question. But yes, I'm sorry to say we do not award grants for projects that have been object of a token sale. And NFTs are token sales.
That's a bummer.
Did you sell your NFTs?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we received EOS for we did an initial Genesis Tartier
so you did a token sale, right? Non-fungible tokens.
Non-fungible tokens.
Yeah, they are tokens. It is a way that people are escaping regulations. They're still tokens.
Damn.
Having said that, it does not mean, though, and this is where I've talked about before, we recognize that there's still gaps in the system. Helios is trying to fill one of those gaps by being a traditional VC type of entity. The ENF is also working on something that we mentioned before, and we talked about it last week, and I talked about it during the EVM launch event as well, that the ENF Ventures component of things will kind of come and complement these 3 other pillars that are currently live and ongoing.
Yeah. So can you tell us more about that then? The ENF Ventures.
So I've mentioned it on on a few occasions now. I can give another
video, and I've watched the full explanation, the video. I think it's super cool. Have you made have you gotten clarity on how the process works to be an actual like VC and by returning the profits to the ecosystem that still constitutes a nonprofit? Is that like
I'm sorry, I answered that last week, so let me just reiterate in case it wasn't clear. A non-for-profit is allowed to generate revenue. Profit exists when you don't have an expense to offset that revenue and you generate a profit. A non-for-profit can still have cash flow. A non-for-profit can still generate revenue. What it cannot do is generate any profit. And so if there is revenue, for example, currently the ENF has revenue. It has revenue from inflation, the tokens that are allocated, not that are going through inflation directly, but the tokens that are then allocated because of a matching expense. And so there's definitely cash flow, there's definitely revenue. What there isn't is any profit. Now, in the case of ENF Ventures or any other, let's say, endeavor that the ENF would do, or any other non-for-profit, this has nothing to do with the ENF, as long as you have a matching expense, then you're not running a profit. Now, what makes the ENF unique in this case, or where we're trying to align the incentives, is that the bylaws and the mandate of this particular non-for-profit is of growth of EOS. And if you give me a second, I'll actually read to you, because I just sent it for something. So just give me a second.
Mm-hmm.
Let's find that. So the current mission mandate is to encourage the development and growth of the EOS network by administering the financial support, administering the financial support of and providing non-financial support to projects and entities within the greater EOS community with a view to creating positive global change. So again, your question about how will the ENF handle revenue is that we have revenue. What we can't do is profit.
Right. Yeah, I get the difference. Thank you.
So the ENF Ventures, the idea, and the same thing with the EVM, is if those projects run a profit and part of that profit goes to the ENF, well, for the ENF, that is not profit. For the ENF, that is revenue. That revenue needs to be offset with an expense. That expense, as per our mission mandate, has to be on EOS. And so any revenue or any cash flow that goes through the non-for-profit has to be deployed on EOS. The idea with this and the vision behind this is that at some point, if the investments that we are making on behalf of the EOS token holders, because that's what the ENF is doing, it's making investments in the blue papers, working groups, EVM, Pomelo, Eden, whatever it may be, all the monies that are being spent. If those start generating revenue for the ENF, then that revenue comes and offsets the revenue that is currently being used through means of inflation. So if at some point this is very successful, you could imagine a world where the amount of revenue that is coming in through these other bets or these other investments that the ENF has made could come potentially offset all of the requirements for the ENF to be leveraging any inflation. However, it has to spend that on EOS. So you could see a future where the function that the ENF currently fulfills could continue happening by law because of its mandate without costing anything to the token holders.
Yeah, really, I think it's a super sound plan. Hope it works out, and on top of it, if EOS finally gets to move up.
Well, we already have one of this right now, right? So one of the things that we did is we invested the last few months in trying to build a coalition. The coalition currently comprised of Telos, UX, and Wax, has over the last couple of days sent their share of the first quarterly payment for the $8 million annual commitment right now to the EOS chain, because that's what we're using as the treasury. The total sum of that is, I believe, $568,000. That is direct revenue that the EOS token holders got from other chains in order to come and offset the cost of code development for EOS that it needed anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's
So the idea of the token holders starting to make revenue off of functions that it offers is already real, is not theoretical.
and I imagine that the ENF is in the best position to also offer like some DeFi services or set up like an official EOS stable coin, you know, and then we could model off some of those successful models like the Terra Luna thing, and that could potentially offset the whole system if it works out, right?
So the first flagship product right now is the EVM. So I talked about it last week, so I won't go in detail again as to why that particular model was chosen. So I'll just fast act through that. But the EVM is the first flagship product of that model, which then the intent is to scale that model and the governance process and the legal process, etc., through ENF Ventures.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, not necessarily their projects exactly that you mentioned, but yes, that model of doing is what we're going to scale through ENF Ventures. And EVM is the first essential flagship product, pilot project of that particular framework.
Yeah, that's super exciting, and as I told you in Telegram, I think I have a few ideas that we could, I could potentially, we could potentially support the EVM expansion on EOS, but we'll take that offline.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for joining, Hernan, as always, and thanks for the relevant questions.
Yeah, no, thanks for the concrete answers.
Perfect. At this point, I'd like to invite Denis to talk a bit about Yield Plus and some updates regarding the work that's being done in that working group.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Steph. I think we'll keep it pretty short because, again, we're more in the final delivery of Yield Plus. So right now we're kind of in the stage, the last leg of writing the blue paper for Yield Plus, which is mostly the document assembly, editing, proofreading, making sure the English is not, one English. There's UK English, US English, those small little details. So we're kind of just in that last leg. And the document should be delivered by this week, end of week. And once it's delivered to ENF, then it goes into another review stage. Graphic designers will be involved to kind of create the final paper. It will be sent to translation for Chinese and Korean. That way, we kind of have that multilingual blue paper that you would see from all the different blue papers that are released. And once the paper is released to the public, we will schedule sort of community feedback sessions, Twitter spaces, even fireside chats. Then we can all talk about the details. We can bring on board the Yield Plus team. So it was a joint venture with many teams. So we can have everyone who's involved in the paper on those sort of community feedback sessions. And just to give a little heads up, the model is based from Phantom and Polygon. They have both released liquidity mining rewards or liquidity reward programs in the last year or two. So we modeled off those programs quite heavily with some slight modifications to adapt to EOS mainnet in the current condition. So we go into details into that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to having it released, giving it, having the community have the eyes on the blue paper, and we'll collect as much feedback as we can after it's released. And looking forward to it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to learning more as well. We had an interesting question from Eagle W. It kind of incorporates a lot of different topics. I'm not sure you can address all of them, but maybe you can address some of them. So he says here, can we talk a little bit about liquidity rewards with Yield Plus? And he asks, is this a solution for vote buying? That way BPs can focus on making improvements and not paying voters. And then he says that he saw the earlier the video that was posted with you, Denis, which was a quote from last week's Fireside with great info, but he wanted clarification on this. So I don't know if that's even a topic you want to address right now, but figured I'd throw it your way since it was shared in the chat.
Yeah, I can at least touch on the a few things. So mostly the reward incentives is to promote active DeFi protocols, which means that if you are a BP and you want to collect, let's say, rewards, or you're an actor in the ecosystem, you will need to develop an active DeFi protocol, swap pool, lending, derivative, something. It is not a vote exchange incentive mechanism, so there is no rewards for voting this. So this is purely a liquidity reward program and not a voting mechanism revenue model. So you will have to build and develop and attract liquidity to an active DeFi protocol to participate. So that way, the liquidity that is rewarded is an active use, right? It's actual liquidity in the ecosystem doing DeFi work. Whether it doesn't matter what protocol you're hosting, but it needs to be in a protocol.
Right. So this Yield Plus really doesn't have anything to do in terms of block production or vote buying or anything like that. Kind of fully separate topics.
Yeah. So as long as you're building a protocol, so it has nothing to do with voting mechanisms. It really just tracks liquidity. It tracks how much EOS you have or Tether, and it rewards you based on holding asset liquidity into your protocol.
So I imagine, are there some protocols that are already live on EOS that are like confirmed to qualify for this program? Is that something you can share with us at this time, or should we wait for the release of the blue paper?
Yeah. So EOS has DeFi, right? So we have applications that are already deployed on EOS, which means that any application that has, let's say, like active liquidity, let's say an example, some lending protocols like Pizza or DeFi Box lending, those are active protocols that have current liquidity in them. Or swap pools like DFS, again, DeFi Box, or there's a few other swap pools on the ecosystem. But practically any protocol that is that have liquidity currently and isn't in current use, there will be a minimum, like a TVL minimum. Again, that will be a configuration of the system contract. So they will have to meet a minimum TVL requirement to be eligible to join the program, and a maximum of TVL threshold. So that way we share the reward incentives among many protocols and not just one dominating protocol. So we have kind of a minimum and a maximum to be eligible. So yes, if you go to, I'll share the link. DeFi Llama is one that has sort of a preview or an overview of all the EOS DeFi applications. Those would be kind of the target audience protocols that would be first eligible. The only caveat is that it would only count EOS or Tether asset in liquidity. So some of these protocols have other tokens that are supported as TVL. In the current initial form, it would only be EOS and Tether initially supported, and later on, additional assets will be added to the program.
And this also plays into the EVM, the TrustEVM, that's going to be launching after this Yield Plus program goes live. And I imagine if some of the popular EVM DeFi protocols launch on EOS, then they could access this incentive program as well.
Correct. Yes, it's going to be both supported for EOS mainnet. That's a native chain, and EVM, the TrustEVM chain. And but once we have that TrustEVM chain, there were going to be bridges. You can bridge over your EOS, you'll bridge over your tether, and that tether on TrustEVM or native EOS will both be counted towards that liquidity rewards system.
I guess while we're on thanks, Denis, for this, these thoughts on Yield Plus. I guess while we're on the topic of DeFi in EOS, this week there was some announcement around Vigor. So I don't know if we have people from the Vigor team on the call now, but the protocol is now being managed by a new company, Origin. From what I understand, I have not been paying too close attention on there, but if someone from the team could maybe share a bit about that, that'd be great. Or if anyone in the community has thoughts on that, if they're excited by it or not, or whatever, I'd like to hear those thoughts as well.
Doesn't look like any of the team is. I'm trying to.
I could drop a little tidbit. I thought it was impressive because I asked you on one of the calls to get me for the translations of page count and word count. So just to give people a heads up of what to expect here. Clocks in at 52 pages at almost 13,000 words. So this is probably the most detailed DeFi program that's been released. Like, I know a lot of the initial ideas, some of them were like with the tiers were based on Phantom, and Phantom was like a one-page blog post, for example, that didn't really go into detail about anything. And that's pretty much the case for all of the other DeFi programs. So this one, it's packed full of information. It's got a lot of nice charts and information and data. And it's going to be a really fun conversation once it is published. I'm looking forward to kind of the couple weeks of feedback afterwards, because it's going to be a lot to absorb. But the benefit of this one compared to the previous blue papers was the previous blue papers, we were just like rapid firing them like in the month of February, just dropping like 60, 70 page documents week after week, 4 weeks in a row almost. Or I think one of them was a little bit later. But this one will kind of be the only giant document that we're going to be publishing at that time. So it should, and it's a really interesting topic to a lot of people. I don't know if like audits are interesting and security are interesting to everyone on this call, but I think everyone has a general interest in DeFi, a general interest in increasing TVL and liquidity incentives. So I think this one will be the most fun blue paper that we've seen to date.
Yeah, no, I'll second that as well. Yeah, it's a pretty beefy paper. So again, 52 pages. Again, it might be a little bit less because maybe we'll have some headers removed. But yeah, it covers a lot of things. So it covers, market risks. It identifies also the dangers of DeFi. Not only that there's a lot of positive with DeFi, but it covers also what is the risk, so that users understand what they're getting into. It goes over market analysis, seeing what is the DeFi performance of a chain that has that type of market cap and TVL ratio, and then they introduce a reward system. What is the impact of that chain? And one of the big sections is actually treasury management. So I think a lot of liquidity incentives, they talk about the rewards, but they don't actually talk about how they're going to manage that treasury. And how are they going to manage the regulatory part of, is this system contract level? Is this a one team owns this protocol? Who owns the permission structure? There's a lot of details that goes into the treasury management of setting up these types of reward systems. So we dive into really deep details into how to organize or recommend options to the community on how to operate this, because it's going to be the community and the system to operate this. So yeah, it's packed with a lot of fun, a lot of details. So I think people will be really engaged with reading this this document if they get from A to Z, or maybe just skim certain sections that they want to that they're curious about.
And I'm going to plug my Kahoot quiz right here. So once this paper does come out, we'll be hosting a Kahoot quiz for those who want to either come flex their knowledge or come learn about the blue paper through a fun little quiz. So we were hosting these Kahoot quizzes every week. Now we stopped hosting them every week. We'll just be hosting them when there's a blue paper, relevant working group, stuff like this. So that will probably be the next one. And also, I guess I'll take this time to mention that, instead of the gaming nights on Friday, which weren't that well attended, probably many reasons for that, but what instead I'll be doing is I'll be organizing maybe a monthly poker tournament of sorts for the EOS community. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to work for buy-ins, but it's probably going to be charity oriented or maybe Pomelo charity oriented, something like that. So if you have any ideas or thoughts, or if you want to see a EOS poker tournament, send me a message. Let me know what you think. I'm kind of thinking of a few ideas, and hopefully, I'll have some more news about that in the coming weeks. All right, thanks again, Denis, for all this great Yield Plus information. I see Kay Von Basil here in the chat wrote something about the TrustEVM that I want to bring up. So he says here, most of you are okay. The TrustEVM is a public good, no returns, no price impact. Let people use a fast EVM thanks to us. It feels like Kay Von Basil is not very bullish on the TrustEVM. I think it's a good opportunity to kind of explain a bit how the TrustEVM will impact the price, will impact EOS, and will be a benefit to token holders. So last week we had obviously the Fireside chat a day after the great TrustEVM Twitter Space event that was hosted by the ENF. And we went through that Fireside chat and we added a lot of detailed timestamps and chapters for that video. So if you go to the Everything EOS YouTube channel, check out the Fireside from last week, check out the chapters, you'll see a nice breakdown of a lot of different topics of TrustEVM. A few of them address this topic in terms of how are the EOS token holders going to benefit from the TrustEVM. So I would encourage you to check that out. Not all the information about TrustEVM is out yet. That was just the announcement of this project and this product. But the product team from TrustEVM is going to be releasing more information about some things that may relate to that question that you had, Kay. I don't know if you want to jump in on the chat here. I had to mute you earlier because your mic was on. I'll unmute you. Seems like you got your mic muted now. Cool. So if you want to jump in the chat there, feel free to do that. But so I just wanted to point that out and to remind everyone, if you're listening on YouTube, you missed last week's Fireside. It was really good. There's a lot of good, and we've got a nice breakdown of the chapters and the timestamps, so you can go check that out and really just quickly jump into whatever topic that interests you. We'll be getting these timestamps out for these Fireside chats more regularly now. We'll be doing it for every episode, and we'll try to get them out with a fairly fast turnaround. So hopefully, these Firesides go live Wednesday afternoon. Hopefully by Wednesday evening, these timestamps are going to be up there on the YouTube video that's published on the Everything EOS channel. And so it's going to make it easier for our community to, jump into whatever topic they want to listen to. It's going to make it easy for the community to answer questions in various chats and on Twitter or whatever. Oh, someone has a question about this, boom, link them that timestamp to a particular clip from some thought leader in the community that he shared their thoughts on the Fireside. So just wanted to throw that out there, let you guys know, that's what we're working on, and you can expect that moving forward. What else about TrustEVM? Yeah, so
was there a question? I thought you asked Kay to kind of speak up.
There was not a question, it was more of a statement. He kind of statement says that he thinks, he didn't realize exactly how the TrustEVM would benefit the EOS token holders in the EOS network. And that's why I threw back, directed him to the Fireside last week, which these topics were addressed. I don't know if we want to address them again this week. One more thing I wanted to, go for it.
I could. There were a few things that weren't addressed because I already addressed them in Telegram, and I guess assumed people saw it, and then I saw it was shared in the TrustEVM group. So I'm just going to read through a list of ideas or reasons behind EVM having a gas token. So number one, and we did talk about this one last week, is the shared protocol-owned liquidity pools that will end up, if EVM outperforms EOS, because it's a very small market cap with a lot more potential. If it outperforms EOS, a protocol-owned liquidity pool is going to inherently lock up a bunch of EOS. I've been working on some numbers to crunch using the constant product formula, which is basically what Uniswap and Bancor algorithm uses. And just to give an example is if you had a liquidity pool, a protocol-owned liquidity pool with 500,000 EOS on one side and however many equal EVM tokens on the other side. And I'm only using those numbers because I have it in a calculator in front of me. And if the EVM were to go, let's say 10x, 20x, let's use 20 on against EOS, it would result in over 16 out of, if you started with 500,000 EOS, it would, and then the other token go moons, so to speak, it would result in over 20 million EOS being locked up in the liquidity pool. So it's like a strategic bet on the project. It's kind of like the EOS network, as Yves said in the video clip from last week's Fireside chat that I think we published yesterday. The EOS token holders are the largest shareholders in this product. And one of the ways that kind of comes to fruition is through a protocol-owned liquidity pool. So like I said, this was the issue early on with all of the different EOSIO chains, and why when they would outperform EOS token holders who didn't hold these other tokens like Wax, Ultra, Talos, they'd kind of get upset because EOS did not share in the upside of all of these other projects. We're not doing that with EVM. You can go back to even Dan and what he's talked about with Fractally and what he calls mutual respect. Well, the idea with the EVM is to have mutual respect from the onset, which is a shared protocol-owned liquidity pool between EOS and EVM. If EVM were to outperform EOS, it will result in tens of millions of EOS being locked up in a liquidity pool, and that's just on a calculation of an initial amount of 500,000 EOS. I'll eventually have the data and be able to publish something for you guys, but that's just a rough idea. Is if a project's successful and it goes from a $10 million market cap to a $100 million market cap, then your 500,000 EOS bet becomes tens of millions of EOS being locked up by the protocol, and that's just one strategic bet. The other thing is resource costs. So if you didn't have a gas token, let's say, and you did your EVM like how Talos does it, for example, they use Talos to pay for the resources. With the TrustEVM, you're still paying EOS in the background. If you didn't have a token, the only benefit to the network is going to be the transaction fees from the power-ups. So we're still getting that with a gas token. The gas token's like a layer on top of that. So inherently, when someone pays gas for a transaction on the TrustEVM, they're paying EOS resources in the background. It's just being handled by the RPC nodes and the smart contracts rather than by the end users themselves. That makes it so much simpler for onboarding onto EOS. You don't have to pay for an EOS account before you can even transfer EOS from an exchange to a wallet, for example. When you're transferring tokens to an EVM wallet, you don't need to set up an EOS account. You also don't need to worry about staking resources or knowing what Rex is or paying for power-ups every 24 hours. All of that's abstracted on the EVM because it uses a gas token. But inherently, underneath it all, you're still paying transaction fees. If you didn't have a token at all, the same amount of resources on EOS would be used. So there's no difference there. Another thing is DeFi on the TrustEVM. If it wants to participate in the Yield Plus incentive programs that are going to be published over the next couple of weeks, the only TVL that is being proposed by Yield Plus is for EOS TVL and USDT, the EOS native version of USDT. Nothing else initially. So that means if DeFi projects that launch on the TrustEVM, if they want to be able to apply for the liquidity program through Yield Plus, they're going to have to focus on their EOS liquidity and their EOS TVL, which means locking up more EOS, which is what we want. We want to take EOS out of supply and out of circulation and put it into DeFi or lock it up somehow. Additionally, with the TrustEVM having its own token, it has its own incentive token that it's able to use to incentivize other liquidity programs. And this has no cost to EOS token holders. So if the TrustEVM team wants to have their own liquidity program saying launch DeFi on TrustEVM, we'll incentivize you with EVM tokens, that has no cost to EOS. So it's an extra incentive layer on top of EOS. It's not a tax on EOS token holders. Take that a step further and think about like partnerships. If the TrustEVM wanted to build a partnership with like the Graph or with Chainlink or any other or like just other DeFi projects out there, a bridging solution, if there was a cost involved where they had to pay tokens or do a token swap with each other to align incentives or whatever, they could pay with their EVM tokens, which means that that's another cost that's not being bared by EOS token holders because the TrustEVM product team themselves have their own incentive mechanism to onboard projects. So just like on EOS, like we use EOS to fund EOS projects with Pomelo, for example, like I could envision a future where maybe there's another way of using Pomelo with other tokens. I know on Gitcoin, you could use multiple tokens other than Ethereum or other than USDT. So I could see a future where you have Pomelo grants that you pay and have grant matching with an EVM token. So it's an additional incentive mechanism to onboard new projects that has no cost to the EOS token holders. As far as the IEO, a portion of the supply will be sold, and it will likely be sold on a launchpad on another blockchain even that has a lot more liquidity, a lot more whales. All of that is external capital being drawn into the EOS ecosystem. It doesn't have to deal with the same necessarily reputational hurdles that EOS has because TrustEVM can stand up on its own. It's going to introduce new capital into the ecosystem. The expectation is not EOS token holders being the only people getting involved in this. It's to attract people who hold big bags of Ethereum, big bags of BNB, big bags of Matic, big bags of Avalanche. It's not. We need to like get outside of our bubble here. Lastly, and the most important. I mean, the other reasons are pretty important, but it's the incentive layer for the RPC nodes. So the RPC nodes are the endpoints that the wallets interact with or a DApp interacts with, and these nodes have to have an incentive to operate. I don't know the exact cost of them, but let's say it's in the thousands of dollars per month or whatever. Just I don't have the numbers in front of me, and I don't even know if they've been calculated yet. But who bears the cost to incentivize these RPC nodes? Do we want to have EOS inflation funding the node operators for the TrustEVM, or would we rather them fund themselves through their own governance token? I just jumped ahead, a governance token. So by having its own token, it allows the EVM to be able to upgrade itself without requiring EOS consensus. So for example, whenever EOS upgrades a system contract, it requires 15 out of 21 block producers to approve the code. And before they approve the code, they usually either audit themselves or use a third-party auditor, or they rely on just someone that's really high reputation that they trust. There's no expectation that an EOS node operator is going to fully understand the TrustEVM or its code. It's not their job as an EOS BP. So to require a 15 out of 21 EOS BP consensus for every upgrade on the TrustEVM would not make sense. So that's why there's a different consensus mechanism. If anything, TrustEVM's a proof of stake blockchain on a DPoS blockchain, which is quite interesting. It's like a blockchain within a blockchain. but it has its own consensus mechanism. It has its own governance, and it has its own incentive mechanisms because, like I said, the node operators need to be paid. If they want to onboard developers, those developers need to be incentivized with their own grant programs and such. So all of this is driving value back to the EOS token holders. It's driving value because you're bringing users onto EOS via the TrustEVM. You're locking up more liquidity. You're locking up more EOS with both the protocol owned liquidity pool and any of the DeFi projects that participate in Yield Plus. And yeah, I'm out of words. I think that was my rant. Any questions? It's the killer DApp on EOS. Everyone wanted a killer DApp. And this is what it is. It's going to attract more dApps, and we don't have to pay for those more dApps.
Yeah, no, that was a great answer, Zach. Let me read you what Kay wrote in the stream chat. He says, thanks for the explanation. We'll definitely listen to last week's chat. Not easy to catch up each day. Now he's listening to Zack. So cool. Then he asked, is it decided if there will be an airdrop or a token sale for EVM tokens? And then he asks, to whom does TrustEVM belong to? Who is the owner of it? Is it the ENF? I've got some of these answers, but I don't know, Zach, if you want to.
So I can answer some of them, but I think Yves would be better to start this one. Then I'll jump in and do the parts that I have a better understanding of.
So Yves,
sure. Yeah, sure. So thank you, Sebastian, for linking the video entitled "EOS Token Holders are the largest shareholders of the TrustEVM product." I mean, the title itself tells you the answer that you're looking for. I would really invite you to go and listen to that video because it'll answer a lot of your questions. And I'll just backtrack because there's a few other questions that were brought up by that person. No, TrustEVM is not a public good. So again, please go listen to the video that was made and that has already been timestamped and cut and really condensed, which will answer the majority of your questions. For that specific part of the list of questions that Kai is asking, the token sale, there will be a token sale for the EVM token. And we did mention that the tokenomics are not finalized yet. That is currently the number one priority. So we do have multiple models. There are a few competing models as to how we'll approach this, but there will be a token sale. The EOS token holders, and without going into too much detail, there are obviously benefits to them. We mentioned, just like Zack just went on a long rant about the benefits. The EOS token holders are the largest shareholders of the actual foundation that is going to be essentially owning this product. And so that is one component of it in terms of governance, in terms of actually being able to determine where those tokens are going. Basically the tokenomics themselves and such, and the community pool. And again, without going into too much detail, because it's not finalized. It's not that I don't want to, it's that there's still multiple models that are competing against one another. So I can't tell you, there's no answer. But the EOS token holders are the largest shareholders of this project. It is not a public good. It is a for-profit project. And Zack just elaborated why that is advantageous to EOS token holders. And I elaborated in that video as well as to how that decision came about and which models were competing against another, leading to that decision and why we took that decision, etc. To whom TrustEVM belongs to. So again, I'm not really sure what the question is. The EVM tokens will obviously belong to the EVM token holders. The EVM function itself is a private bit. So let me backtrack again. You really should go listen to that video that people keep linking to. It really answers all of this. The EVM itself, the functionality itself, is the public good that the ENF funded through EVM Plus. And that is being worked on, and that was being developed and is being developed by Matthias and his team within EOS Argentina. That is the functionality, the actual being capable of doing EVM on EOS, just the function. The function, however, is worth very little if nobody leverages that function. And so the product side of things, which is different, the product side of things is TrustEVM, and that is what I'm referring to when I say it is an entity, and the EOS token holders through the ENF are the largest shareholders of that entity to make the decisions and the governance decisions of that entity itself. When I mentioned then the benefit to the token holders outside of what Zack mentioned, because it is the largest shareholder, any profits that are generated from that will inevitably go to the EOS token holders. But they go to the EOS token holder. What does the EOS token holders means? It has to go through an entity. We're working in this legal world. So again, the EVM concept and the flagship product, the way that it's being built, is a pilot for what we're attempting to do and scale through ENF Ventures. But the architecture of how that works out, EVM is the first one. And I mentioned that it is very similar to, and it's not the same thing, but it gives an idea if you go doing research on crown corporations. And it's the idea that it's a good, or it is a product that it is accessible to all, but it is held in the hands of a private entity that generates profit and is run by an entity that is looking to generate profit. But because it was subsidized and because some of its shareholders are the public, then part of that profit goes back to the shareholders that helped subsidize it or helped create it. So the direct benefit of the product that is being managed by a private entity that is incentivized to do this because they also hold ownership in this and they're running it as a business, attempting to actually create profit for themselves, has direct benefits to those who subsidize that product and are also shareholders, and in this case through the ENF. And then so we will go again, because I mean, go listen to the videos, please. We've explained this on multiple occasions. The ENF is a non-for-profit. The non-for-profit is its mandate, and I read it earlier, is to direct any type of revenue as expense back to the EOS network. So the ENF cannot run any profit. It has to deploy any revenue that it makes back into EOS. And so any revenue that, let's say this, or any profit that the EVM would be generating, which would now constitute a revenue for the ENF, because the ENF is a shareholder of, then would come in revenue to the ENF, which then has to be met with a matching expense back into the EOS ecosystem, directly benefiting the EOS token holders. Right now, the EOS, so we're in our second report for the ENF, we've spent roughly, I believe it's about 13 or $14 million, give or take, right? That comes directly from inflation. That is, as you mentioned, that is a tax on the token holders. What we are attempting to do in the long run with these initiatives is to offset all of those costs so that the benefits that you see from the ENF going back to the token holders, you mentioned Pomelo, for example, but there are other initiatives, that those benefits continue existing without having a cost to the EOS token holders. Zack just went on a long rant to explain what those benefits could be and how we're offsetting those costs to the EOS token holders, ensuring that there's external capital that is coming into the ecosystem to pay for those initiatives. And we're attempting to do this in a scalable manner, always ensuring that the incentives are well aligned. Very similarly to what I believe a lot of us imagined when we sent tokens to Block 1 in the ICO, and or what we imagined EOS VC would be. The big difference in those is that those were held in the hands of private entities, and their shareholders are private shareholders. In our case, legally, we cannot do anything with that capital other than to deploy it on EOS by mandate. And then the EOS, meaning the EOS token holders, which are the ones that are benefiting from this. So I really, really invite you. You don't need to listen to the 2 hours of Fireside Chats. The team has been spoon feeding condensed clips that very specifically answer the questions that are repeatedly asked about how the EVM will benefit token holders, how the ENF is positioning itself to replicate this process, scale this process, and do this more frequently, more often, in order to come and benefit the EOS token holders without necessarily bearing a cost on the EOS token holders. The coalition is another concrete example. It is not theoretical of external capital coming into EOS directly going to things that will benefit EOS token holders. I know that there's a lot of information out there and you can't catch up on everything. This applies to everybody, which is why we've been really trying to condense that material and those rants and the answers to the questions in very digestible formats, which we also translate into Chinese and to Korean. We sub it into Chinese and to Korean. We attend these fireside chats. We do Twitter spaces. We write blogs. We are spoon feeding you as much as possible in every medium and every language that right now that encompasses the majority of the token holders as we see them at the base. That's not to say that there are languages or token holders that aren't in those three languages. But at this time, those are the three that comprise the majority of them as we see them. And so we are outputting as much information as possible. And then going on the marketing side of things, we've also talked about how it's what you see is the English side of things. Replicate that -10 is what we have to do in order to reach the same ratio of people, but let's say in China and or in Korea, the population is just larger, there's just way more token holders. So that's all of the marketing that you don't see that we've continuously been doing and ensuring that people are aware of what it is that we're doing, for example, for the EVM, et cetera, et cetera. The function of being able to let people know of what it is we are doing for the token holders is one that never ends. We don't have a magic book. We don't have a magic solution. And so we attempt to do it through various formats, various languages, in many different ways. We attempt to do it as well through crypto publications to non-crypto publications. We're open to suggestions to do things better. It never ends. We recognize that and we will make mistakes. But it is important to note that the information is out there. At this point, if you have questions that are not being answered, it is not necessarily because we are not answering them. We never shy away from joining these calls. We always participate in these calls. Any subject is up for grabs. We always answer. That you cannot take away from us, and that I will not stand for.
No one's accusing you or Zack of not answering these questions.
No, actually, this gentleman in particular has been in the main EOS channel very frequently lately, saying that his questions are remaining unanswered, that he is being shut down or he's being banned. I have no idea what that's talking about because clearly he's here and talking, and we keep putting information out there. At some point, it is your responsibility to go and seek that information that we are spoon feeding to everybody.
That's fair, but you guys are still going to get these questions, I'm sure, and you'll still have to repeat it at some point in the future. I'm sure.
Eventually, we'll have enough links we could point to. That's what's so nice about these bite-sized videos and these rants is kind of like they act as FAQs. So that instead of having to go apeshit on these calls, we could give someone a link or a timestamp to the last time we went apeshit. But it doesn't work 100% of the time because we already see ourselves today repeating a lot of the things we discussed last week. But it'll be a continuous process.
Maybe that's on us to not answer the question and just share that link. But it's still very new. I understand why the community still has a lot of questions.
I understand too.
Not everyone's listening to every fireside chat.
Why not?
Why not? Yeah. But speaking of TrustEVM information, I think there's a transcript coming up soon of the Twitter Spaces event. Is that right, Zack?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be so much easier. I'm getting to the last couple FAQ questions. With the transcript, like the spoken word doesn't necessarily read very well. So just going through that, it'll be out today. I've been doing it while on this call, trying to wrap it up. But yeah, it's basically a text format. Like Yves said, we're trying to spoon feed as much information as possible. So like we for example, the Twitter event was attended by around 400 people live, but it had like the Chinese translations in between. So this event ended up being very long, like 2 hours long, which is a lot of time to ask of people out of their day. So what we did was immediately after that event, we immediately started chopping that audio up and removing all of the Chinese translators so that we'd give you just a pure English version. So that took like a 2-hour event, and it condensed it down to 53 minutes. And then, so that's one way to spoon feed it. And then the second way is just like taking the human readable transcript. So it's not an AI transcript, it's a transcript written by humans. And then me going through it and kind of like fixing the language a little bit so it actually reads properly, and then delivering that to you guys also, so that now you'll be able to have a blog article format that you'll be able to read and have everything that was explained in the TrustEVM, so that hopefully a lot of these questions that keep coming up will get answered. But that's like a constant theme that we're trying to do is take one piece of content or one piece of information or one activity that we're doing as the ENF and generating multiple forms of content out of it. Just think of it like this fireside chat. So not only do we have this could just be a chat, and we could not even record it, but it's still engaging. It's still adding value to the 40 some people that are here. But then we take it a step further. We live stream it to Facebook. We live stream it to Twitter. We live stream it to YouTube. And then immediately after the event, within like 2 hours, we meticulously timestamp every single topic that came up. That way, when someone sees the 2-hour fireside chat, they have immediate or near immediate timestamps. That way they could just pick and choose which chapters they want to listen to. And then we go another step further, and then we cut them up into bite-sized clips and remove all of the ums and ahs to clean it up. And then we post those 5-minute clips to Twitter and YouTube. And then now we're even going a step further, since I went through this whole transcription experience with really good third-party service. And now we're going to start providing transcripts for all of the short video clips that we do also. That way, in case you don't even want to watch a 5-minute video, maybe you could read the 2 or 3 paragraphs of text to digest it. Like, that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to give you guys as much information as you can. And we're held to such a high standard that I just don't see in other ecosystems. So I'm happy to do it, because I love like communicating with you guys. Like, this is my community. I've grown with you guys over the last 5 years now. So that's what we're doing.
Yves and Zack, if I can just jump in here for a second. I think you guys are doing a great job with communication. I don't think that you guys deserve any fault for confusion. The real reason why communication has been an issue is because there's not enough people in the community explaining what's going on to people who are following what's going on to the rest of the community. That's what happens in Ethereum. You don't have Vitalik spoon feeding everyone every little bit of piece of information. It's the community stepping up and doing the job. That being said, one point of clarification that I think you guys have alluded to, you guys have spoken about several times, but it keeps coming up on a question. Maybe this is a good opportunity for this to be a short clip. Can you explain why the TrustEVM is going to be launching in an IDO, whatever it's called, type of process, rather than an airdrop to EOS token holders? That seems to be the main question that I've been getting. I've been seeing in the chat. I've been seeing Telegram. And I think if we can just get one last final answer on that and then put it to rest, it would be great.
2 words: external capital.
Boom, shortest clip ever. All right, that's it from the fireside. See ya, guys. Just kidding. But yeah,
but I'm serious. So we debated on that one for quite some time. The airdrop wasn't as big of a debate, but the type of token was quite the debate, whether or not it be EOS token itself. And we went over that. So again, I invite you to go back to the fireside last week. The clip up top is like 7 minutes. But for airdrops historically are not very successful unless the underlying asset that the superseding asset is quite successful. In our case, one of the largest issues with EOS is there's no capital. We need more people. We need external capital to come into the ecosystem. We've been very public about this, where what's missing in EOS, a big part of it is people making money. People have not been making money. You need people to make money in order for then an ecosystem to start thriving, because when people make money, they start deploying that capital, and it starts forming a cycle of of capital generation. EOS at this stage, if the EVM token or any token right now were deployed 100% as an airdrop, it would be a failure. The token holders would take that token and immediately sell it off, and you would not have any external capital being brought in. I did mention, and I'll mention it again, that there will be advantages in the token sale for EOS token holders. Without going into detail, because we're still ironing out the detail, I'm not saying that there won't be any airdrop. I'm saying that the model of 100% airdrop to token holders would be a massive failure. There would be no incentivization for anybody to continue developing the product. There would be no money being made by those who are actually putting in the work. There would be no long-term effect as well for the EOS token holders, other than they would get the token and would immediately sell it off. It's bad all around. It's a flawed model.
I'll add one more thing is, like, would you guys like to see people swapping their BNB for EOS or swapping their Ethereum for EOS? Like, that's essentially what will happen here, because what do you expect the majority of the TrustEVM's team's treasury to be? Like, do you think that they're going to hold all of these other assets? Maybe some, but I would imagine that the majority of their treasury is going to be EOS. So whenever it goes through this launch pad, it's going to be bringing in external capital and most likely swapping a large portion of that into EOS as a treasury. Also, the team itself, if we want the TrustEVM to have a 10-year runway, if it was 100% airdrop, then like, where are they getting their capital? This just came up last night on the EVM call. We're lending developers to the EVM team, and Yves was very, very strict. He said, Marius and the rest of the team, like, you guys could use REG, you guys could use Bucky, but it's temporary. As soon as you guys launch, you guys have to have your own like team of developers ready to go and on standby, ideally starting before that, because as soon as you guys go through this IEO and launch your project, you guys are on your own in a lot of ways, as far as like the developers that we're lending to kind of make this happen. So they're going to have their own treasury, their own runway, and they wouldn't have that if we just did like the 100 or if there was 100% airdrop, and that's like the entire supply. That only worked. The only project that has ever done that was Everpedia. And the only reason that project was successful is because they had $30 million that EOS VC gave them whenever they were trying to kind of give the appearance that this was going to be a common thing that they would do after the mainnet launched, and it never did. So unless there's a VC that has $30 million to give to a project, or even $10 million to give to a project so that they could airdrop 100% of their supply, then it's just not going to happen. And even with Everpedia, they had a team supply and a like partnership supply, but they did airdrop a good portion of their supply to the EOS token holders. But that was only possible because they had external capital injection in the tune of $30 million. And that also happens to be one of the only teams that has like a Binance listing, because it's just so expensive to get these exchange listings. Do we want the EVM token to be listed on Binance? Do we want it to have a chance at getting listed on Coinbase? Like, if you want to do that, that costs money. It's over $1 million to get listed on some of these exchanges. Do we want that to come out? Do you want this team to have to sell down their own token to get $1 million just to get listed on Binance? Or would you rather them have a nice treasury that they got from BNB holders, that they got from Ethereum holders, that they got from Avalanche holders? Or do we want them to just only just be a bunch of people, the 50 people on this call? It's all about external capital. It's all about growing this ecosystem and giving upside to the new people coming in. And then they'll stick around. Dexeran, I don't know, he made a good tweet recently, because he was like almost bitching, like saying, why is everyone so excited about the EVM? Like, and this is a developer who's very experienced in Solidity and very experienced on native EOSIO. And he's like, why is everyone making such a big deal out of EVM? Because it's crap compared to native EOS. Yes, we agree. Like, I could agree with that. Like, technology wise, EOSIO as it stands is a better technology, but it doesn't have the libraries around it. It definitely doesn't have the hundreds of like 1,000+ developers that and the libraries and SDKs that Ethereum has. So Ethereum has many advantages right now, but it's kind of opening the door. You open the door with the TrustEVM, and then it introduces a whole new audience to EOS. And that's the idea. It's the introduction. How else do we introduce? This is the absolute best possible way to introduce EOS to a much, much larger audience and community than what is on like this call, for example, and hanging out in the Telegram groups on the day-to-day.
So that's a great way of putting it, Zach and Yves. I think that just to clarify for people like Kay and anyone else who's confused still, the main reason it's its own token and not a 100% airdrop to the EOS community is if it was 100% airdrop to the EOS community, it would be a failure. If there's a partial airdrop to the EOS community, it may or may not be successful. But what we do know is by launching on elsewhere, you can get the benefit of everyone's liquidity, not just EOS. EOS has a $2 or $3 billion market cap at the moment. Ethereum is probably around 350 billion. So it's 100 times more money available to promote this token. And that's why it's not 100% being airdropped to the EOS community.
And the other thing is, I keep saying the protocol-owned liquidity should not be understated. So it's the same thing as an airdrop, except instead of everyone getting EVM tokens, the network itself has a stake in the EVM tokens. Because in a liquidity pool, you have half of it as EOS and half of it as EVM. If the EVM is successful, it's essentially buying everyone's EOS tokens, because the liquidity pool is going to fill up with EOS and it's going to have less EVM tokens. Like I said, if you started, I don't know what the final numbers will be, but if you started with 500,000 EOS and the product went 10x, 20x, it would result in tens of millions of EOS being pulled out of circulating supply and stuck into this protocol-owned liquidity pool that doesn't have a reason to ever come out. So you're basically, instead of giving a new token to everyone, it's like the protocol itself is buying back EOS. Think of it like that. Instead of thinking about why am I not getting an airdrop, think of it like you're getting a EOS buyback out of it. That's what it's essentially going to do, if it's successful. And that's what we didn't have with the other EOSIO chains like Wax and Ultra and Talos that were very successful over the last year. There was no shared liquidity between them. That's the idea with the set token. So whenever you guys hear about like what UX has been building and what could be the possible future treasury for the EOSIO coalition in the future, it's this idea of this shared liquidity pool between all of the EOSIO chains. And then even if EOS was stagnant, but all of the other chains did really well, it's going to lift up EOS. And that's the same whether it's an index token, like with the set token's trying to do, or a 1-to-1, 50-50 shared liquidity pool between EOS and EVM. It's mutual upside. It's aligning incentives. It's going to pull EOS out of circulation, and it's the same thing as a buyback. And no one has to buy the EVM tokens on the other side. It's like the protocol owns a bunch of EVM, and the protocol stuffs EOS in the other side of the pool. So that pool is owned by the EOS token holders, essentially, because if that project's successful, it's pulling it out of supply. And those protocol-owned liquidity pools, they've got really strong hands, and they don't care about impermanent loss.
Yeah, good stuff. There's been a bunch more questions in the chat that kind of all, go around the same topic. I think you guys addressed them well. Again, we'll recommend people go watch last Fireside with some timestamps in there to relevant topics that have been brought up today. We'll be putting up the timestamps, probably by tonight for this video. For those of you who might want to re-listen to some sections or want to refer to these comments to other people in the community when they ask these very popular questions. So I think, still a lot of questions coming in. I don't know, Zach and Yves, if you guys want to tackle them, or I think, like I said, I think we're kind of going around in circles at this point. You guys.
Well, I guess I'll repeat again because it's Aaron. So he says, which offsets the downside to doing EVM, but doesn't highlight the upside beyond resource usage and locked token. No, because the EOS token holders will be shareholders of the EVM, which means also owning tokens, EVM tokens. Those EVM tokens, if sold, will be sold, and that revenue has to be deployed on EOS.
But so as an individual, I don't have any of these tokens. I don't care if it's on exchanges. The only benefits, again, to me are that EOS is being used, which drives value to EOS.
And the amount of inflation needed to fund the ENF is lower because now some of
At
this
some
external
point, the amount
capital.
of inflation could be zero, but the functions of the ENF could remain. And that is
So
direct capital going into, for example, the capital that's going right now into the blue papers and then the subsequent developing of the code. That bears a cost on the ecosystem, but that function is useful. If that function is now paid but is no longer bearing a cost, that is a direct benefit to the EOS token holder.
I don't think that that was ever clearly stated that the ENF would be basically getting an airdrop of these tokens to be able to deploy on EOS.
I'll repeat again because I guess it is not clear, and I'm just gonna scroll up because I'm not sure how it's not clear. The video is literally titled "EOS token holders are the largest shareholders of TrustEVM."
Yves, I think the confusion was that it's one thing to say that they're shareholders, but it's another to say we literally get 10% of the supply airdrop to us, or whatever that may be.
What just from shareholder, if not owner of the product?
Well, I'm not saying that
not to be
it's
smart,
not the right language.
What else can that mean?
Clearly, it's created some confusion, and that it's not that it's confusing people that they don't understand that being a shareholder means you benefit from it. What they may not understand is that you're literally getting some of these tokens, which isn't just being a shareholder. That means you're being airdrop money, basically.
Yeah,
it is even more so than that, because not only is there going to be a pool of tokens that is then let's say owned by EVM Labs, and EVM Labs will have direct benefit, or part of those will be the ENF. There's also the governance. So I also talked about the future of the project itself. So the non-financial, but ownership of the project itself. The EOS token holders are also the largest shareholder of the actual legal entities. So it is literally the EOS token holders are the largest shareholders of TrustEVM. That is the accurate wording. And that legal entity then determines where those tokens go and which tokens, which buckets of tokens, and what is the governance or what is the inflation of that chain and how that chain works, etc. They're literally the largest shareholders.
Well, the ENF is. I mean, individual
and the
token
ENF
holders
has
are
no
not.
And the ENF has no choice. I'm turning in circles here. The ENF has no choice. As per its mandate, legally, it has to deploy any capital that it gets back to the EOS network. It cannot do otherwise.
And there's an uncertainty there about if it will provide value to an individual token holder. Whereas if there was an airdrop of some form, people are getting direct value individually that they can apply however they see fit, which I think is why people are asking about this. They want a personal upside as opposed to a collective upside. And it's fine that that's not happening, but to try to understand where this is coming from, I think that's why. Elevator music back.
Yes, sir.
Actually, real quick, something that might be helpful would maybe be some just some examples for how this would work. I mean, I understand that we're talking through them, and I don't think right now. I think there's a lot of frustration, and obviously they've pointed to the Yves and Zack have pointed to the videos now, and I think we're at a point where the rest of us we can go look at it and come up with some of our own questions. But I guess, and I don't know if there's this documentation out there someplace, but some sort of example of what this would look like for a person that, that had, how I understand that you're saying that EOS are, where are the stakeholders, largest stakeholders for EVM, but how that breaks down. I think Aaron said it right with, how the collective good versus the personal good. So basically, like a rundown, what it would a day in the month or a month in the life of a token holder, and how it would benefit them. I understand how it benefits the community and how it benefits EOS because the money is obligated to be spent on EOS. So yeah, it does a lot of community good, but is there a personal upside to the user? So any sort of way that we could illustrate that to people, whether it be flowcharts or whatever, that'd be super helpful.
I don't think it should come as a surprise from this community that this is the opinion of many people, because this is how block producer rewards have gone as well. We've moved from inflation being used to create public good to inflation going back to the token holders because that's what the token holders wanted. So we have this base of users that want personal benefit to the use of these things. I'm not putting a value call on any of this, but for people to be asking like, where is the personal reward in it, is kind of to be expected just with the environment we exist in.
I guess
So-
my question, Aaron, so for example, then do you believe that that also applies to any of the other work that has already been commissioned, let's say, by the ENF?
I mean, yes, if it's the creation of things of value, as in tokens, which I think is the touchy subject here. If the
So why
ENF
wouldn't it apply to why, for example, we spent money on API transaction lifecycle improvements?
That is like a straight public good. This EVM token is not a public good. It is literally a unit of value.
No, but that public good that you just mentioned, your argument was that, or the ending question is, how does that benefit the actual token holder? Well, API transaction lifecycle doesn't answer that question either.
No, it doesn't. And I think that people were expecting with the TrustEVM to do both, especially when the idea of a new token.
So again, what we mentioned was that one, the tokenomics aren't done, and there are two models, more than two, but largely two models pulling one against another. So they're not finalized. So people want to know the answers, and I very directly said that I can't give them because they don't exist yet. But what I did say was that it would not be 100% airdrop to token holders. What you're questioning is why not 100% to token holders, and we've answered that question.
No, I'm not talking any ratio of it. From the sounds of it there is no airdrop at all. The ENF may be getting a portion of the distribution, but the token holders individually are not.
That is not the case. That is one of the ideas on the table.
Okay, so none of this is finalized at this point.
I keep saying none of this is finalized.
I apparently am not a good listener then.
We've mentioned it on multiple occasions. The tokenomics are not finalized. There are multiple models, two primarily, pushing and pulling against one another. The final tokenomics are not complete. I did also mention on multiple occasions that the EOS token holders, and a particular subset perhaps of those, will even see greater benefits to this. Ultimately, I guess what you're not really saying, but others are more saying, is they would like free money from this. They just want tokens. Just give me money. It is really what we're circling around. Just give me money, and then I can decide to do what I want with that money. Just give me money. Just basically create value for me. And I understand that because part of this is the token holders that have subsidized that. But that applies to everything that the ENF has been doing, not just the ENF, not just the EVM. And if we look at, and we mentioned this last week as well, if we look at the total cost of the EVM so far, it's been less than $1 million. It's not even close. The potential upside to the token holders, and now I'm not talking about just giving you free money, the potential upside to the network, including perhaps also tokens to the EOS token holders, far outweighs the cost to the token holders. It is a no-brainer. We would make that call again, anytime. It was highlighted as the highest priority out of any priorities by stakeholders all around to invest and to ensure that EOS becomes EVM compatible. And so having to make that decision again as to whether or not we should invest funds, I would do again. The design and the model of how to do so and how should we architect it in an attempt to create the largest value return for EOS token holders. This is where we may debate. Some might say just 100% airdrop. And we've explained why I do not believe, and I'm not alone in this, we have multiple people working on this, why we do not believe that this was the most effective mechanism or architecture around how to deliver value back to the token holders that subsidize part of this project, because the ongoing maintenance and development of this project will not be subsidized by the token holders. So that's in a big part why the airdrop at 100% is not a viable option, or why that's not chosen. There are other architectures as to how we could have designed this, and we talked about the token itself. Why did we choose, for example, an ERC20 token versus an EOS token? So we've gone over the different, on multiple occasions, choices that we were left with in terms of design decisions or architectural decisions, and why we made those decisions. That may or may not appeal to everybody. Obviously, it can't. There will always be people that are not happy with the design decisions that we are making. At this stage, I still believe that the design decisions that we have made and continue making with the information that we have are creating or have the potential to create the best alignment of incentives, learning from past mistakes that we've seen on EOS with failed attempts directly on EOS, as well as what we've learned from other ecosystems. Similarly, very similar exercise to what the Blue Papers and the team behind the Blue Papers did when they presented proposals. They went and looked out, we went and looked out at other ecosystems, how they designed theirs, how they implemented theirs, what was the architecture of that, and we tried to create a model that we believe aligns the incentives better than other potential contenders that we had. That remains to be seen whether or not that will be successful. It is entirely possible that this does not work out. I'm not saying that what we've chosen will ultimately, and the way that we've chosen to do things will ultimately be successful. What I am saying, though, is that those decisions are made based on information, on research, on a lot of input, and a lot of thought process going into this. And that in itself is all we can do is now implement and execute and wait to see the result. Whether or not it pans out, we will see.
And I think just clarity and upfront, I am trying to figure out where this is coming from, this feeling. And the more we talk about this, the more I think that with the statement that there will be a token sale of this, and no statement of anything for EOS token holders besides some like passive benefits, which are arguably great, people feel left out, and they feel like to participate in this, they're being forced to make a purchase. So if in parallel, like there was a little bit of both, I think a lot of this sentiment would potentially go away, and it would be inclusive of current EOS token holders. And
I agree to a certain extent, but even if we said then they will, then you'll ask how much. And it will ultimately
0.
not end until we just publish what the tokenomics will be.
True.
And,
but I mean, I think,
said, and I'll say again, once they're finalized, we will publish them, just like we've done with everything else.
Yeah.
And then you'll be able to debate as to whether or not you believe we made the right call. And no matter what, there's a bunch of people that will agree by default, without even thinking about it. And then there's going to be vocal people on both sides. At the end of the day, it is our responsibility to make this happen. And if this fails, it is our responsibility. It is on our shoulders. We understand that.
Don't disagree. I think that
I wish there was a manual and it told us exactly what to do.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there isn't. We are in charge currently as the ENF. We are by de facto the project manager for this thing called EOS. And we've been left with an asset in distress, with a community in distress, with non-existent roadmap, with a brand that sucks ass and that has negative connotation all over it. And we are attempting to do something with that. And what you've seen, and this is where perhaps there's solace, over the 7 months, what we've been doing is what we will continue doing until we are told that that is no longer acceptable. And until essentially until the market or the token holders or the block producers or the board, which you are part of, says this is no longer bringing value to EOS.
Right. And I think this was mainly just a PR thing that was an unknown, kind of like the playbook that you just mentioned. I think that declaring that there will be a token sale and then also saying, and yeah, we don't know what the potential other benefits for EOSIO token holders is what led to these kinds of questions. Again, I'm trying to figure out what is happening, and I'm not putting my judgment on how it is being done or the effectiveness of how it is being done.
I think the alternative would have been holding off on starting to ramp up communications on the EVM. Like we could have waited another month, and by that point, hopefully the distributions and token economics will be more solidified. There will be a nice blog post written by the TrustEVM team, and it'd be more crystal clear. But as soon as the testnet was ready to launch, we launched it and tried to start talking about the product. And not all of the answers are known because like there's a few different things still being debated with the economics, like you've said. And it's kind of like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Yep.
Like you stay quiet and everyone's like, why the hell are you guys quiet? Like what's going on? But then you try to like say what's solid, like what's concrete, and then it's like, well, tell us more now. And it's like, well, there's not more. We could have waited to tell you anything, but I feel like we've done so much over the last however many months, and then the years prior to that like there should be a little bit of a benefit of doubt. Like I will fucking way more egos than what I'm comfortable admitting. Like I want what's best for EOS, and so does everyone else. And just kind of I don't know.
Yeah.
I understand it though. At the same time, like I've been here with all of you guys. I've been in the trenches, so I understand the frustration, and that's okay. I just hope everyone else kind of understands the frustration on the other side too of answering these same questions and sometimes getting fired up and heated up and enthusiastic because it's hard on both sides. I get it. I really do. And I guess the best thing I could say is just like, as soon as all of the decisions are made, you guys on this call are going to be the very first ones to know about it. You'll probably hear about it before any official blog posts go out or anything with official communications. Like, you guys will know as soon as we know.
And on that point you just made, there are going to be people in this community still, for very good reason, that will not give benefit of the doubt. Like, that is not something they are willing to do after the past couple of years. So,
And that's fine.
Yeah, we just have to expect it and communicate and move forward.
We'll just keep building up the track record.
Yep.
So I guess the thing that is frustrating and why I get so heated up is we just spent 4 years of people saying they will do things and not following through. And we just spent the last 7 months saying we will do things or telling you we've done things after they are done. The question of whether or not the ENF at this point executes on what it says it will do, at this point, it should not be a question. Whether or not you agree with it, completely acceptable. Whether or not they will follow through on it, and whether or not what they're saying is aspirational language, at this point, that is what's frustrating.
I agree.
And just like with what we've been doing with on the EOS side of things, with like Pomelo and the direct grant framework, like there's going to be more opportunities for people in the EOS ecosystem to make money because there's going to be grant programs on the EVM side also. There's I can fully imagine like there will be a way to have EVM grants on Pomelo. That's just more opportunity and more capital getting deployed to the people on this call who are willing to make contributions to either ecosystem. It's like we're getting a whole new blockchain inside our blockchain, a whole new ecosystem within our ecosystem. They're all kind of connected.
All right. Well, I think this was a good discussion on TrustEVM and EVM on EOS. I'm sure it's not going to be the last discussion of this topic on the Fireside, but I think we've gone around the topic in a fair amount of detail today. So we're going to wrap it up here. If anyone has any other topics they wanted to address, gonna give you guys 30, 60 seconds to bring them up. And then if not, we're gonna wrap it up here.
I mean, I need to, it's stronger than me. I have to.
Let it rip.
No,
my mute button is stronger than you as well, Yves. I can use it if you want.
Okay, I'll, because it's really not clear, apparently. As a non-for-profit, any asset, again, this has nothing to do with blockchain. Any asset that is under our management counts as revenue. That revenue needs to be offset. We cannot hold revenue. We cannot hold assets. Those assets count as revenue. We cannot generate profit. That way, that means that revenue has to be offset with an expense. And so, no, we cannot hold, for example, 164,000 Bitcoin, because that would be 160,000 Bitcoin worth of their revenue. This has nothing to do with blockchain. This is why we set it up in a way to ensure that any monies that flow through the ENF have to be deployed back on EOS. The ENF cannot hold monies. It cannot just hold on to assets. it has to deploy it. Otherwise, it generates a profit. It would lose its non-for-profit designation status.
Hey guys, Jay Taylor wants to kick in a quick comment. So I just want to say, hey, Zack and Eva, I can't even express in words how much I appreciate the blood, sweat, and tears, time, and work that you're putting into this. And I think it's infinitely and globally valuable. And so I just want I want you guys to hear some human being out there say that out loud, because I hear the burnout in your voices. And so, but you know what? There's 7 days in a week. I heard one guy came down with some stone tablets that said, "Hey, take 1 out of 7 days, rest, relax, do no work, and praise God." That was one. That may have been divine. And so, but I'm saying it as a human being. Take a breather. This is a globally valuable, and I consider it infinite project that's worth pursuing. It's kind of funny. It's like I thought we didn't like Ethereum, but I'm just. I think that needs to be said also, is that I'm not in a position with my EOS tokens to say, hey, how can I profit off this? I'm just a beginner who's trying to catch up as quickly as I can catch on to the process of moving forward in a way that's valuable. And I think we're doing that. And this fireside chat is a beautiful example of just that. And so that was my encouragement. I thought I was going to start off with the bad news and then move to the good news. The bad news is there's 7.5 billion human beings walking on this planet. Some of them can't even speak. Some of them, most can't speak English. And so the bad news is you better take a day off this week, because you've got to repeat what you just said and what you've posted and what you've been saying for the last 4 years and 4 months, to again and again and again and again, and sooner or later, if the truth bubbles to the top, then great, it's a winner. And if we need correction and make adjustments and move forward, then that's what we'll do also. And so I should leave it there, but I'm Jay Taylor, so I won't. My inquiry is not, hey, how do I make money off my tokens? My inquiry is that in the long-term view, is the TrustEVM going to be designed in a way that it actually considers that Ethereum may not be sustainable over the long term? We may have a better chain already to begin with. And so right now we're focused on, hey, let's do the EVM. It's like, okay, let's do that. And there's definitely some transaction fees here. And we could, I'm not saying it's just we can make a quick profit off it, but maybe that's true also. But, and not even that profit's not even the motive. It's like, how do we move, if we want to move our chain forward and even, redesign it or redevelop it or make adjustments or improvements, do we have, and here's what I'm suggesting is there's a paradox here, and that's why I'm all in on this. I think the TrustEVM is a great idea, because what's going to happen is it's like playing tennis. You're going to hit the ball on the other side of the net. Pretty soon they're going to hit it back to you, and we're going to win the match and the game, set, match, done. So that's my 2 cents worth. But I just want to reiterate, hang in there, guys. I think that you're the leaders of a project, of a new dimension of a global economy system that's tokenized, and that's that we're going to win sooner or later. And so I want you guys to hear me say out loud, keep up the good work. It's going to pay off in the long run. And I appreciate good job on what you've done so far, and keep up the good work. Thanks.
All right. Thanks for that nice comment, Jay. And, thanks for being an active part of our community here. So, yeah, we're going to leave it off on that mostly positive note, a pretty much positive note. So I'm going to thank everyone for joining the Fireside this week. Share it with your friends. Refer to this video when you see some of the questions come up. The timestamps will be up later tonight. And we'll be back again next week for another EOS Fireside Chat. And until then, I hope you guys have a great day, great week, and let's go EOS. That's your cue, everyone. Jump in, say go EOS. We'll wrap this up.
EOS. Go EOS.
Go EOS.
Go EOS.
Go EOS.
Go EOS.
All right, love it. Talk to you guys next week. Bye-bye.